Consciousness returned in fragments, each piece sharper than the last. The first sensation was cold. Not the biting cold of vacuum, but the clinical cold of a surface designed for sanitation. His back pressed against something hard and unyielding. The air tasted sterile, filtered, carrying undertones of chemicals he couldn't identify. His eyes remained closed, but his other senses were already mapping the environment. Soft footsteps, multiple sets, the whisper of fabric against equipment, low, guttural vocalizations in a language his brain couldn't parse, a mechanical hum, constant and rhythmic, vibrating through the surface beneath him. He cataloged everything, his military training pushing through the fog of whatever sedative they'd pumped into his system. The footsteps stopped. He felt their attention shift toward him, a weight in the air that preceded words. The vocalizations became sharper, more urgent. Something clicked, a device activating near his head. A scanning beam swept across his face, invisible but detectable by the subtle warmth it left on his skin. He opened his eyes. The ceiling was pale gray, featureless except for recessed lighting that pulsed with a soft amber glow. He turned his head, a motion that required effort, and found himself surrounded by 4 figures. They stood at varying distances, their postures rigid, their features frozen in what he could only interpret as shock. They were tall, each measuring at least 2 meters. Their skin had the texture of smooth bark, dark brown with subtle ridges that caught the light. Their eyes were large, black, and entirely too expressive for creatures that looked so alien. Their mouths had no lips, just vertical slits that twitched and fluttered as they stared. The nearest one, distinguished by a silver band around its throat, took a step backward. The motion was jerky, uncontrolled, as if its body had moved before its mind could object. The others followed suit, their tall frames pressing against the walls of the narrow room. Rourke forced himself into a sitting position. His muscles protested, heavy and slow, but he refused to remain prone. He swung his legs over the edge of the medical table, his bare feet touching the cold floor. He was wearing a thin gown, the fabric rough against his skin. The silver-banded one made a sound. It emerged from its vertical mouth as a series of clicks and hums, forming a pattern that might have been speech. A device on the wall translated, the words flat and mechanical. Subject is conscious. Neural response exceeds projections. Sedation failure. Repeat, sedation failure. Rourke focused on the speaker. Where am I? The translation software struggled, producing static before spitting out broken syllables. The Vethari medical director, Thavax, stared at the human with growing unease. His species had dealt with countless beings across the galaxy. None had ever regained consciousness so quickly from their standard sedative protocol. Subject demonstrates vocal capability, the translation continued. Linguistic analysis indicates origin from Sector 7, uncharted region, designation, Sol, planet, Terra, classification pending. Rourke stood. The motion was slow, careful, but it sent a wave of tension through the room. 2 of the medical staff pressed themselves against the far wall. The third, a younger Vethari with a lighter bark pattern on her face, clutched a datapad against her chest. Your sedative protocols are insufficient for human biology, Rourke said. His voice was calm, measured, the tone of a man who had faced worse situations and walked away. Your sensors will show you that I am not a threat to you. However, I require information. Where? A.M. I. Thavax's black eyes widened. The human speech was clear now, the translation software adapting with impossible speed. This creature's linguistic processing capacity must be extraordinary, or terrifying. You are aboard the Vethari medical vessel, Korath's Mercy, the translation said. You were recovered from a wreckage field following a jump gate failure. Your craft's emergency systems preserved your life. You have been unconscious for 17 cycles. Rourke processed the information. A jump gate failure. His patrol vessel, the Rapier, had been conducting a standard navigation check when the gate destabilized. The last thing he remembered was the hull screaming as the energy surge tore through their shielding. How many survivors? Thavax hesitated. The human's question carried weight, an expectation of truth that made lying feel impossible. Your craft was the only intact vessel. No other life signs were detected in the debris field. Rourke's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. A darkness, a depth of cold that made Thavax's internal temperature drop. The medical director had served on 42 species vessels. He had seen warriors from 100 worlds. He had watched beings die with dignity and terror in equal measure. He had never seen anything like this. Your crew is classified as deceased, Thavax continued, the translation smoothing out the words. The Vethari Healers Guild offers condolences for your loss. Rourke nodded slowly. I appreciate that, but I need to clarify something. Are my crew members deceased, or are they declared deceased because you assumed they couldn't survive the damage? The room temperature seemed to drop. The medical staff exchanged glances, their silent communication carrying a wave of unease. Rin, the young technician, felt her grip on the datapad tighten. She had accessed the human's medical file. She knew what his biology looked like. She knew the impossible cellular density, the redundant organ systems, the neurological pathways that should have been incompatible with conscious thought. The human was classified as a survivor of a jump gate failure. That alone should have killed him. No known species could withstand the quantum disruption of a gate collapse. This one had walked away with minor burns. Your crew members are deceased, Thavax said firmly. The wreckage has been scanned. No life signs remain. Rourke closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, the cold was gone, replaced by something more terrible, acceptance. He had lost his crew. He would mourn them later. For now, he had to survive. Then I need to contact my command structure, he said. My vessel's black box transmitted our position before the gate failure. My people will be searching for us. Thavax's mouth slit tightened. Your people. Commander, you are in Vethari space. Your species has no treaties with us. No communication protocols. No diplomatic channels. Your people could not find you even if they knew where to look. Rourke smiled. It was the first time the Vethari had seen a human smile. The expression was unsettling, pulling back lips to reveal flat teeth. There was no warmth in it, no humor. My people don't need treaties, Rourke said. They need a direction, and you just gave them one. Thavax's internal systems registered a spike in stress hormones. He had just made a decision that would echo through his species' history. He had decided to contain this human. He had no idea how impossible that would become. The medical bay transformed into a fortress within the cycle. Thavax ordered additional security personnel to the corridor outside. He requested a transport team to move the human to a containment facility on the surface of Vethar Prime. He authorized a full-spectrum biological analysis to determine exactly what they were dealing with. None of it went according to plan. Rourke submitted to the examination without resistance. He stood in the center of the scanning chamber, his arms extended, his expression neutral. The Vethari technicians operated their equipment from behind a barrier, their movements quick and nervous. Neural mapping complete, one technician reported. Encephalographic density exceeds average by 300%. Synaptic pathways demonstrate branching patterns inconsistent with standard cognitive architecture. Subject appears capable of parallel processing across multiple neural clusters. Thavax reviewed the data on his personal display. Explain. The human's brain operates on multiple processing tracks simultaneously. This is not a simple matter of intelligence. It suggests a neurological evolution based on threat assessment and rapid decision-making. Their ancestors must have faced predators requiring constant environmental awareness. The next test produced even more unsettling results. Genetic analysis revealed adaptive markers present in every cellular strand, sequences that had been modified and enhanced over countless generations. The human body wasn't just a product of evolution. It was a product of survival pressure, so intense that natural selection had become a forge. Tissue regeneration capacity is unprecedented. The technician continued. then paused, her mouth slit fluttering in distress. Scans indicate cellular regeneration at rates 4 times faster than baseline Vethari. Wounds that would require weeks to heal in our species would resolve in days for this being. Thavax approached the barrier, studying the human through the transparent shielding. Rourke met his gaze without flinching. The creature's eyes were a pale blue, a color rarely seen in the galaxy, and they held nothing but patient observation. "You are a warrior," Thavax said, the translation carrying his words through the barrier's speakers. Rourke tilted his head. "That's a broad term. You are trained for combat. Your body demonstrates adaptation for violence. Your muscle density, skeletal structure, neurological responses, all optimized for conflict. Why does your species prioritize such development?" Rourke considered the question. "We don't prioritize it, we developed it. There's a difference." Thavax waited for elaboration that didn't come. The human's answer was incomplete, but it carried weight, the kind of weight that came from personal experience rather than academic knowledge. "Explain," Thavax pressed. Rourke lowered his arms. The motion was slow, deliberate, and every Vethari in the room tensed. He noticed their reaction and chose not to comment on it. "Earth is a world that demands adaptation," he said. "Our ancestors evolved in an environment where every day carried the possibility of death. Predators, natural disasters, disease, competition for resources. We developed our minds and bodies to survive because the alternative was extinction." "Every world demands adaptation," Thavax countered. "Evolution is universal." "Evolution is universal," Rourke agreed. "But not every world is Earth. Our planet's gravity is 3 times what you experience on your homeworld. Our atmosphere is saturated with oxygen, making it corrosive to most biological tissue. Our ecosystems developed without the stabilizing influence of intelligent intervention." Thavax's data display flashed with new information. The human's homeworld classification had been updated by the Vethari's automated library. The entry was sparse, isolated from the galaxy's central datanet, but what it contained sent a spike of alarm through his nervous system. Planet Terra. Classification, Category 9. Conditions, extreme gravity, reactive atmosphere, high tectonic activity, ecosystem dominated by apex organisms. Indigenous species demonstrate rapid adaptation to environmental threats. Human population status, expansion. Warning, approach with caution. Category 9. Thavax had seen the designation twice before in his career. Both worlds had been sterilized by their own biological processes, the life on them too aggressive to coexist with galactic civilization. Category 9. Worlds were considered death zones. No species that evolved on such a world could be integrated into the galactic community. This human was a biological impossibility. A creature that had evolved in conditions that should have killed it, emerged from a world that actively hated life, and now stood in his medical bay with calm patience. "Your homeworld is designated as hazardous," Thavax said, his voice carrying a tremor he couldn't suppress. "Your species is considered a potential threat to galactic stability. Why were you not contained?" Rourke's expression shifted. A flicker of something, amusement or anger, it was impossible to tell. "Contained by whom? Humanity has been expanding into space for 4 centuries. We've never encountered another intelligent species before. This is our first contact." The word struck Thavax like a physical blow. First contact. This human species had achieved faster-than-light travel, colonized multiple systems, developed military capabilities sufficient to survive interstellar conflict, and they had done it all in isolation. They had never faced another intelligent being. They had no concept of galactic law, no understanding of the community of species that governed the known universe. They operated under their own rules, developed in the crucible of a world that had tried to exterminate them. "No other species," Thavax repeated. Rourke shook his head. "We've been looking. The galaxy is bigger than we imagined." Thavax turned away from the barrier, his mind racing. This was beyond his authority, beyond any Vethari official's authority. The human's existence was a diplomatic catastrophe waiting to unfold, and he was the one who had found it. "Your designation," he said, forcing his voice steady. "What is your designation?" Rourke straightened. "Commander Marcus Rourke, Terran Aerospace Command, Vessel Coulson Rapier, designation pilot, rank Lieutenant Commander." Thavax absorbed the information. "Commander Rourke, I am Director Thavax of the Vethari Healers Guild. I am responsible for your care and containment. I must inform you that your presence in Vethari space represents a significant violation of our territorial sovereignty." "Unintentional," Rourke replied. "My vessel's navigation system failed during the jump gate collapse. I didn't choose to enter your space." "Intent is irrelevant," Thavax said. "The law is clear. Unauthorized entry into Vethari territory requires containment and assessment. You will be transferred to a secure facility while your species status is evaluated." Rourke's expression didn't change, but his posture shifted. A subtle adjustment of his weight, a slight bend in his knees. The Vethari security personnel outside the barrier noticed the change and raised their weapons. "I don't recommend that," Rourke said. Thavax blinked. "You are not in a position to make recommendations." "You're right about that," Rourke agreed. "But I'm going to make one anyway. If you try to transfer me to a containment facility, I will resist. That resistance will cause damage to your personnel and equipment. I don't want that. You don't want that. So let's find a different solution." The room fell silent. Thavax stared at the human, searching for any sign of bluff or deception. He found none. Commander Rourke spoke with absolute conviction, the kind of certainty that came from knowing exactly what he was capable of. "You are outnumbered," Thavax said. "Outgunned. You are in an unfamiliar environment with no support. Why would you resist?" Rourke smiled again, that unsettling expression that didn't reach his eyes. "Because I'm human," he said, "and humans don't accept captivity. It's not in our nature." The standoff lasted for 3 cycles. Thavax attempted to negotiate, offering Rourke improved accommodations, nutritional supplements, and a private communication channel to his people. The human accepted the first 2 offers and declined the third. He wanted contact with his command, but he refused to accept terms that would leave him at Vethari mercy. "I need my people to know I'm alive," Rourke explained. "That's not negotiable." Thavax reviewed the options available to him. Containment would trigger the human's resistance, which would escalate to violence. Violence would mean casualties. Casualties would mean political consequences. The entire situation was a maze of bad choices. Rin, the young technician, found herself drawn to the human's containment cell more often than her duties required. She observed him through the barrier, watching his movements, studying his behaviors. He spent long periods in meditation, his eyes closed, his breathing steady. When he wasn't meditating, he was exercising, performing movements that stretched and strengthened his body. "Rin," Thavax said, approaching her station, "your attention seems focused on the human." She turned, her bark pattern darkening with embarrassment. "Director, I apologize, I'm simply curious." "Curiosity is understandable, but you are neglecting your assigned duties." "Director, may I speak freely?" Thavax hesitated. Technicians were not encouraged to speak freely to directors, but this situation was unprecedented, and Rin's youth might offer perspectives his age and experience had overlooked. "Speaker, I've been monitoring the human's vital signs during his interactions with our staff. He maintains complete biological control over his stress responses. His heart rate doesn't spike during confrontations. His blood pressure remains stable even when security personnel enter his space. He's not afraid, Director. He's simply waiting." Thavax considered her words. Waiting for what? "That's what I've been trying to understand. He's not waiting for rescue. He knows his people will come, but he doesn't expect them to save him. He expects them to find him. Those are different things." Thavax's mouth slit tightened. "Explain." "His people don't need to know where he is to find him. They need to know he's alive. Once he's established contact." He can give them his location, but he's not desperate for contact. He's patient. That patience suggests he knows exactly what his people will do when they arrive. The realization hit Thavax like a jolt. The human was stalling. He was buying time not for his own rescue, but to ensure that when his people did arrive, they would have a clear target. You're suggesting he wants his people to come here. Rin nodded. Not as aggressors, as negotiators. He's not a threat, Director. He's a messenger. He's telling us what happens when humans interact with species they don't understand. Thavax turned back toward the containment cell. Rourke had stopped his exercises and was looking directly at them, his pale blue eyes visible through the barrier. He raised one hand in a gesture that might have been greeting or might have been warning. "Open the barrier," Thavax ordered. "Director, open the barrier. I want to speak with him directly." The security personnel protested, but Thavax overruled them. He entered the containment cell, his tall frame moving with the careful precision of someone who knew he was outmatched. Rourke watched him approach, his posture relaxed. "Director Thavax," Rourke said, "nice of you to visit." "Commander Rourke, I've made a decision. You will be granted access to a communication array, but the transmission will be monitored. You may speak with your people, but you may not reveal sensitive information about Vethari technology or positions." Rourke's expression shifted, a flicker of surprise followed by something that looked like respect. "That's generous. What's the catch?" "The catch is that you will remain in Vethari custody until your people establish diplomatic contact. You will not attempt to escape. You will not attempt to harm anyone. You will cooperate with our medical assessments." Rourke nodded slowly. "I can accept those terms, but I need to add one of my own." Thavax's mouth slit tightened. "You are in no position to negotiate." "I'm not negotiating," Rourke said. "I'm informing you. When my people contact this vessel, they will demand immediate release. You need to understand what happens next." "Explain." Rourke stepped closer. Thavax held his ground, but his internal systems registered a spike in anxiety. The human was larger than him, and his body carried a density that made his presence overwhelming. "Humans don't abandon their own," Rourke said. "We don't negotiate over the lives of our people. If you hold me, you will be seen as holding one of ours. That's not a legal matter. That's a survival matter. My species has survived by protecting each other." Thavax processed the words. "Your species will go to war over a single individual." "War is a strong term," Rourke said. "We prefer to call it recovery operations." The door to the cell opened. Security personnel entered, their weapons raised, their postures tense. Thavax held up a hand to stop them. He had one more question. "What makes you so confident your people will find this vessel? Galactic space is vast. Your species has limited navigational experience." Rourke smiled, and this time there was warmth in it, a genuine expression that made him look almost approachable. "Director, my people have been searching for other intelligent life for 4 centuries. We've found nothing but empty space and dead worlds. The moment I give them a signal, they won't just find this vessel. They'll find your entire species." The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Thavax looked at the human and saw something he hadn't noticed before. Not a prisoner waiting for rescue, not a victim of circumstance. A scout, an observer, a representative of a species that had been waiting for this moment. "Take him to the communication array," Thavax ordered. "Monitor everything. Prepare a diplomatic team for contact." Rin watched from her station as Rourke was led away. She caught his eye for a moment and something passed between them. Not understanding, but recognition. They were both players in a game that had just begun. She had a feeling the game was about to change everything. The communication chamber was smaller than Rourke expected. A circular room with a central console and a holographic display that pulsed with soft light. Vethari technicians operated equipment along the walls, their movements careful and precise. Thavax stood beside Rourke, his presence both a comfort and a threat. The human had been given time to clean and dress in standard Vethari garments. simple gray coveralls that fit poorly but were functional. He looked more presentable than when he'd awakened, but the doctors still noted his slow pulse and steady breathing. "The array is calibrated for your species' transmission frequency," Thavax said. "You may speak. Your words will be encrypted and broadcast on a broadband. If your people are listening, they will hear you." Rourke nodded. He approached the console, his fingers tracing the interface. The technology was unfamiliar, but the principles were universal. "I'll need to confirm they receive this. They'll respond on the same frequency within a standard cycle." "That's fast." "We've been waiting for contact," Rourke said. "Every second of every day for 400 years. We've built networks to listen. When you broadcast, we'll hear you. When I broadcast, they'll hear me." He activated the console. The holographic display shifted, showing the Vethari equivalent of a blank transmission channel. Rourke stared into the visual pickup for a long moment, gathering himself. "This is Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rourke of the Terran Aerospace Command vessel Rapier. I am alive and in Vethari custody. My condition is stable. The Vethari are an intelligent species, currently unaware of our existence. I request immediate contact protocols." He paused, his jaw tightening. "My crew did not survive the jump gate failure. I am the only survivor. Advise next steps." Rourke out. The transmission ended. Thavax waited for more, but Rourke stepped back from the console, his expression unreadable. "That's it. That's it. They know I'm alive. They know where I am, more or less. The rest is up to them." Thavax studied the human carefully. "You mentioned your crew. There were other humans on your vessel." Rourke's eyes flickered. "Yes, 11 others. We were on a routine patrol when the gate destabilized. I was in the command pod near the emergency systems. They were in the main section." "What happened to the main section?" Rourke turned away from the console. The gate collapse created a quantum fluctuation that ripped the hull apart. The main section lost integrity in 3 seconds. They would have been exposed to vacuum and radiation simultaneously. Thavax knew what that meant. No species could survive such a combination of hazards. The humans' crew had died quickly, but they had died. "I'm sorry," Thavax said. The words felt inadequate, but they were all he had. Rourke looked at him. "So am I." The next 60 cycles were a study in controlled tension. Rourke remained in the communication chamber, his presence monitored but not contained. He ate the Vethari's nutrient paste without complaint, slept in short intervals, and exercised in the limited space available. He was patient in a way that made Thavax uneasy. "There's something wrong," Rin said to her director during a private consultation. "The human's behavior is too controlled. He's not reacting to his situation the way any other species would. Where's the fear, the anxiety, the despair?" Thavax had wondered the same thing. "What do you suggest?" "I suggest we analyze his neurological patterns during rest periods. He's been dreaming consistently since he arrived. The dreams are intense, carrying high emotional content. If we can interpret the patterns, we might understand what he's feeling beneath the surface." Thavax authorized the scan. The results arrived within a cycle, and they painted a picture that made his bark pattern darken with shock. Commander Rourke was not calm. He was not patient. His dreams were filled with images of destruction and loss, moments of violence so intense that his sleeping heart rate spiked to dangerous levels. He was grieving. He was angry. He was a storm of emotion held in check by discipline. "He's not a threat," Thavax said, reading the data. "He's a man trying to survive." "Survive what?" Rin asked. "His own emotions. He's lost everyone he served with, and he's holding himself together through sheer willpower. That's not patience. That's endurance." The realization changed Thavax's approach. He authorized improved living conditions for the human, nutritional supplements that might actually satisfy his biology, and access to Vethari entertainment media as a distraction. Rourke accepted the gestures with quiet gratitude. "What's happening?" Rin asked when she delivered the new supplies. "Why are you helping him?" Rourke looked at her, his eyes carrying shadows that hadn't been there before. Because I'm human, he said, and humans help each other, even when they're enemies. We're not enemies, we're strangers. There's a difference. Rin left the cell with more questions than answers. The human's philosophy was contradictory. He spoke of endurance and protection, but he also spoke of helping even those he didn't know. It suggested a species that had evolved complex social structures to survive. She wondered what would happen when those structures were put to the test. 72 cycles after Rourke's transmission, the Vethari sensors detected an anomaly at the edge of their system. A spatial disruption, consistent with jump gate activity. The source was unknown, and the signature didn't match any known species. Thavax reviewed the data in his office, his internal systems racing with alarm. The human had warned them. He had told them his people would come, but Thavax had underestimated the speed of their response. "What do we do?" Rin asked, standing at his side. Thavax looked at her, his expression dark with worry. "We wait, we observe, and we pray that Commander Rourke was telling the truth about his people's intentions." "Or what?" "Or we have a very short time to prepare for something we don't understand." The ship that emerged from the spatial disruption was unlike anything in Vethari databases. It was massive, easily twice the size of their largest carrier, its hull pitted with weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. The configuration was aggressive, all sharp angles and reinforced plating, designed for combat rather than exploration. Its engines burned with a blue-white intensity that made Vethari instruments flicker with interference. "Analysis complete," Rin reported, her voice trembling. "The vessel is armed. Multiple weapon systems, power output exceeding our defensive capabilities by a factor of 10. It's a warship, Director." Thavax stared at the display. The humans' people had sent a warship, not a diplomatic vessel, not an exploratory craft, a warship designed to project power across interstellar distances. "Commander Rourke," Thavax said through the intercom, "your people have arrived. They appear to be prepared for conflict." Rourke's voice came back steady. "They're responding to my transmission. They don't know what they're facing. They're being cautious." "Cautious? They're heavily armed." "That's caution. If they were aggressive, they'd have opened fire before you detected them. The fact that they're holding position indicates they want to talk." Thavax didn't find the distinction reassuring. He ordered communications protocols established, hopping to contact the human vessel before any misunderstanding occurred. The warship responded within moments, its transmission clear and unencrypted. "This is Admiral Vance of the Terran Aerospace Command Vessel Victory. We have received a distress signal from Commander Marcus Rourke. We request immediate communication with the Vethari leadership." Thavax stepped forward, his voice steady despite his internal anxiety. "This is Director Thavax of the Vethari Healers Guild. Commander Rourke is safe and in good health. We apologize for any concern our actions have caused." "Concern?" The Admiral's voice carried a sharp edge. "Commander Rourke's crew is dead. His vessel is destroyed. He is in your custody. That's not a situation that suggests good intentions." "His crew died in the jump gate failure," Thavax said quickly. "We recovered his emergency pod and provided medical care. Commander Rourke is unharmed and cooperative." "Unharmed and cooperative. That's good to hear. Now let me talk to him." Thavax gestured to Rourke, who approached the communication array. "Admiral," Rourke said, his voice carrying relief. "Good to hear your voice." "Commander, status report." "Minor injuries fully healed. The Vethari have treated me well. They're not hostile, Admiral, just cautious." "Cautious? That's a diplomatic word." Admiral Vance's tone softened slightly. "We've been monitoring their transmissions. They're a non-aggressive species. No history of conflict expansion. But they're holding you against your will, and that's a problem." "I've been placed under containment," Rourke acknowledged. "They're concerned about cultural contamination and territorial sovereignty. They're not refusing to let me go. They're waiting for diplomatic contact." "Diplomatic contact has been established," Admiral Vance said. "Now release our man." Thavax stepped forward. "Admiral Vance, We require formal negotiations before releasing Commander Rourke. Your species is unknown to us, and we have concerns about your intentions." "Concerns?" Admiral Vance laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Director, I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to retrieve my officer. You can release him voluntarily, or we can have a conversation that will end with him leaving anyway. Your choice." Thavax's hands trembled. The human's commander was not responding to negotiation. He was issuing an ultimatum. Thavax turned to Rourke, seeking assistance, and found the human watching him with patient eyes. "Director," Rourke said, "let me go. This will be better for everyone. If I release you, I'll be seen as surrendering to a threatening force. You'll be seen as someone who made a reasonable decision to avoid conflict. There's no shame in that." Thavax looked at the display. The human warship held position, its weapons powered but not targeting. The Admiral's words echoed in his mind. He had a choice to make, and it would define his species' relationship with humanity forever. "Release Commander Rourke," he said, his voice carrying the weight of his decision. "Prepare a diplomatic team to meet with the human admiral. We will negotiate in good faith." Rin moved to unlock the containment cell, but Rourke stopped her with a raised hand. "Wait," he said. "Admiral Vance, I have information." "Go ahead, Commander." "The Vethari have limited defensive capabilities," Rourke said. "They're not prepared for conflict with an unknown species. They're worried about their position in the galaxy. If we approach this as equals, we can establish a relationship that benefits both sides." Admiral Vance was silent for a moment. "That's a diplomatic statement, Commander. Are you becoming a diplomat?" Rourke smiled. "I'm becoming someone who wants to avoid a war that doesn't need to happen." The Admiral laughed again, and this time it carried warmth. "Understood. Director Thavax, I accept your offer of negotiation. We'll hold position until your diplomatic team is ready." Thavax felt a wave of relief pass through his body. The immediate crisis was over, but he knew that the real challenge was about to begin. Humanity had arrived. Thavax's relief was short-lived. Within a standard cycle of the communications conclusion, the Victory systems detected a secondary contact from Vethar Prime, an encrypted transmission, unauthorized and unscheduled. The message was brief, carrying a single line. "Do not trust the humans. They are predators disguised as diplomats." Thavax stared at the message, his internal systems racing. Who had sent it? And why? The transmission originated from a military installation on the surface, but the signature had been scrambled, making it impossible to trace. "Director," Rin said, approaching his station. "Something's wrong. The humans' vital signs have spiked." "Where is Commander Rourke?" "In his cell. He's not responding to communication attempts." Thavax moved quickly, his long legs carrying him through the medical bay to the containment cell. The barrier was intact, but the human was on the floor, his body curled in a fetal position. His eyes were open, staring at nothing, and his breathing was rapid and shallow. "What's happening?" Thavax demanded. "Unknown," Rin replied. "His systems are registering stress hormones at levels we've never seen. It's like he's in the middle of a battle, but nothing is happening." Thavax ordered the barrier lowered, ignoring the protests of the security personnel. He knelt beside the human, his hand reaching for Rourke's shoulder. "Commander, can you hear me?" Rourke's eyes focused on Thavax with difficulty. "Director, something. They're in my head." "Who?" "My people. The communication. They're sending something. I can feel them." Thavax looked at Rin, his expression dark with fear. "What's he talking about?" Rin checked her displays, her fingers moving quickly. "There's no external input, Director. No transmission, no signal. This is something internal." "I can hear them," Rourke continued, his voice strained. "They're talking about me, about my crew, about what happened." Thavax made a decision. "Sedate him now." Rin prepared the injection, her hands shaking. She administered the sedative, and Rourke's body went slack, his eyes closing. The security personnel watched, their weapons raised, their postures tense. "Director," one of them said, The human vessel is hailing us. They're requesting an explanation for Commander Rourke's sudden stress response. Thavex sighed. This was going to be a long day. The explanation took 3 cycles. Admiral Vance was skeptical but ultimately accepted Thavex's claim that Rourke had experienced an unexpected medical episode. The human was placed in a medically induced coma while the Vethari tried to understand what had happened. But Thavex knew the truth. Something had changed. The humans' people had sent more than a warship. They had sent a message, and that message had found its target. He just didn't know what it meant. The Vethari military leadership convened in emergency session. The issue: the human vessel had not left. It had remained in orbit, its weapons powered, its crew vigilant. Every attempt to establish communication had been met with silence. Admiral Vance had offered no explanation. Thavex sat at the conference table, his hands clasped before him. "Director," the military leader said, his voice carrying the weight of command, "your humanitarian approach has left us vulnerable. The humans are not leaving. They are watching. They are waiting." "What would you have me do?" Thavex asked. "Attack them. The vessel's defensive capabilities exceed ours by an order of magnitude. We need to understand their intentions. The human commander claimed his people were peaceful, but their actions suggest otherwise." Thavex thought about Rourke, about the patience and control he had demonstrated. The human was not a threat. He was a representative of a species that was still discovering its place in the galaxy. "I request a private conversation with Commander Rourke," Thavex said. "His medical condition has stabilized. He may be able to explain what happened." The military leader agreed, and Thavex returned to the medical bay. Rourke was awake, sitting up in his bed, his expression guarded. He looked at Thavex with eyes that carried shadows of what he had experienced. "Director," Rourke said. "Commander, you know why I'm here." The Admiral's silence is a message. He's telling you that humanity doesn't negotiate under threat. He's giving you time to make a decision. What decision? Whether to trust us or fear us. Thavex stepped closer. "What happened to you? The communication, the stress response. It was your people, wasn't it?" Rourke nodded. "They used a technology we call psionic transmission. It allows communication across distances without equipment. I'm a receiver, trained to handle certain types of signals. They sent me an update on the situation." "What did they say?" Rourke's eyes flickered. "They told me about the message from Vethar Prime, the one warning you not to trust us." Thavex froze. "How did you know about that?" "I didn't. They told me. They intercepted the transmission and analyzed it. It came from your military leadership, didn't it?" Thavex didn't answer. The question hung between them, heavy with implication. "The Admiral knows who sent the message," Rourke continued. "He's waiting to see how you respond. If you authorize further communication, he'll know you're not part of the faction trying to start a war." "I haven't authorized anything," Thavex said. "I don't know who sent the message." "Then tell him that. Tell him you're investigating. Prove that you're not part of the conspiracy." Thavex looked at the human. "Why are you helping us?" Rourke's expression softened. "Because I believe in peaceful coexistence. I don't want to see a war between our species. I've seen enough death to last a lifetime." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Thavex made a decision. "I'll contact the Admiral," he said. "I'll tell him the truth." "Do that," Rourke said. "And please be honest. It's the only language my people trust." Thavex's transmission to Admiral Vance was brief, clear, and honest. He explained the message from Vethar Prime, the investigation into its source, and his commitment to peaceful resolution. Admiral Vance's response was equally clear. "Director Thavex, I appreciate your honesty. The human race has been waiting for first contact for a very long time. We want it to go well, but we have no tolerance for deception or threats. If your leadership is attempting to create conflict, we will respond appropriately." "I understand, Admiral. I am committed to transparency and cooperation." "Then let me tell you something about humanity that Commander Rourke hasn't shared." Admiral Vance paused, and Thavax sensed the weight of the words to come. We are a species that has survived against impossible odds. Our world tried to kill us, but we didn't just survive, we thrived. We expanded into space because we had no other choice. Every species expands, Thavax said. Not like we do. Our history is filled with conflict, but also with cooperation. We've learned from our mistakes. We've become a species that protects its own and reaches out to others. But that protection comes with a price. What price? Any threat to our people is a threat to all of us. We don't abandon our own, and we don't forgive those who harm them. But we also don't seek conflict. We want allies, not enemies. Thavax absorbed the words. I understand. What do you propose? We propose a formal treaty of non-aggression and cooperation. Commander Rourke will act as our representative. He will remain on Vethar Prime as a liaison. In return, we'll share information and technology that will benefit both our species. Thavax considered the offer. It was generous, perhaps too generous. But the human admiral's words carried the weight of a species that had made difficult choices and learned from them. I accept, Thavax said. I'll prepare the necessary documentation. Thank you, Director. And please, tell Commander Rourke that his crew's sacrifice is honored. We will never forget their service. Thavax looked at Rourke, who stood beside him, his expression carrying a mixture of relief and grief. The human had lost his crew, but he had gained something else, a chance to bridge the gap between species. They'll be remembered, Rourke said. I promise. Thavax completed the negotiations with Admiral Vance, finalizing the treaty that would define Vethari-human relations for generations. When the agreement was signed, Thavax looked at Rourke with new understanding. Commander, what happens now? Rourke smiled. Now, Director, we learn to live together. The end of one journey and the beginning of another.